The Secret Strays Lesson. 11-year-old Eli had always wanted a puppy. With his short, curly brown hair and a mischievous glint in his eyes, he was the epitome of a curious and adventurous boy. He wore a blue t-shirt, jeans, and a pair of worn-out sneakers, as if he was always ready for his next escapade. Eli's parents, however, insisted that he was not ready for the responsibility of caring for a pet. "You have to prove to us that you can handle it," they would say. One day, while walking home from school, Eli spotted a scruffy, medium-sized terrier mix with a patchy brown and white coat, floppy ears, and big, soulful brown eyes. The dog was a bit thin and his fur was matted in places, but he had a playful energy that belied his difficult past. Eli knew he had to help this poor creature. "I'll call you Max," he whispered, as he scooped the dog into his arms and hurried home. Eli knew that his parents would never allow him to keep Max, so he decided to keep the dog a secret. He hid Max in the shed behind their house, sneaking out to feed him and play with him whenever he could. At first, Max was apprehensive, but he quickly formed a bond with Eli, following him around and eagerly responding to his commands. As the days passed, Eli began to realize that caring for Max was not as easy as he had thought. He had to make sure Max had enough food and water, take him for walks, and clean up after him. Eli's parents started to notice that something was off, and they began to ask questions. "Eli, have you been sneaking out at night?" they would ask, but Eli would just shrug and say, "No, of course not." One day, while Eli was at school, Max managed to escape from the shed. He wandered into the nearby woods, where he was found by Mrs. Thompson, a kind-faced, middle-aged woman with short, gray hair, a warm smile, and a comforting presence. She recognized Max as the stray dog that had been seen around town and decided to take him in. When Eli returned home from school and discovered that Max was missing, he was devastated. He searched high and low for his beloved companion, but to no avail. It wasn't until a few days later that he received a call from Mrs. Thompson, who had found Max and was now caring for him. "I think you should come and see him," she said kindly. Eli was overjoyed to be reunited with Max, but he also felt a sense of guilt for keeping the dog a secret from his parents. Mrs. Thompson could see the conflict in his eyes and decided to have a heart-to-heart with him. "Eli, I understand why you wanted to keep Max a secret, but you have to learn that responsibility is a journey, not a destination. Your parents only wanted what was best for you and Max." Eli listened intently as Mrs. Thompson spoke, and he began to understand the importance of listening to his parents' advice. He realized that he had been so focused on proving that he could handle the responsibility of caring for a pet that he had failed to consider the consequences of his actions. With a newfound sense of humility, Eli decided to bring Max home and introduce him to his parents. Eli's parents were surprised to see Max, but they were also proud of their son for taking responsibility for his actions. They agreed to let Eli keep Max, on the condition that he would continue to care for him and learn from his mistakes. Eli and Max settled into a comfortable routine, with Eli taking on the role of a responsible and loving pet owner. As the weeks passed, Eli began to see the world through Max's eyes. He realized that caring for another living being was not just about providing food and shelter, but also about offering love, companionship, and understanding. Eli's parents watched with pride as their son grew into a more mature and responsible young man, and they knew that they had made the right decision in allowing him to keep Max. In the end, Eli learned a valuable lesson about the importance of listening to his parents' advice. He realized that they only wanted what was best for him, and that sometimes, the best way to learn is through experience and the guidance of those who care about us. As for Max, he found a loving home with a family who would always cherish him, and he knew that he was lucky to have found such a caring and compassionate boy. And so, the story of Eli and Max came to a close, but their journey was far from over. They had many more adventures to share, and many more lessons to learn. But one thing was certain, they would always be there for each other, through thick and thin, in sickness and in health, for as long as they both shall live. 11-year-old Eli had always wanted a dog, but his parents were hesitant. So, when he found a scruffy terrier mix named Max wandering the streets, he knew he had to help. He brought Max home, hiding him in his room, and began to care for him in secret. Max was thin and his fur was matted, but he had a playful energy that quickly endeared him to Eli. Eli spent his days sneaking food to Max and teaching him basic commands. Max followed Eli around, eager to please, and the two formed a bond. But as Max's health began to decline, Eli realized he needed help. He knew he had to tell his parents about Max, despite his fear of their reaction. Eli's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, were initially upset when they discovered Max. They had always been hesitant to let Eli have a dog, fearing the responsibility it would entail. But as they saw the bond between Eli and Max, and the effort Eli had put into caring for him, they softened. Mrs. Thompson, a kind-faced neighbor, offered to help Eli and his parents nurse Max back to health. She shared her wisdom about the responsibilities of pet ownership, and the importance of listening to one's parents. Eli began to understand that he couldn't do everything on his own. As they worked together to care for Max, Eli's parents saw the value of responsibility and the joy that Max brought to their family. They began to appreciate the lessons that Eli was learning, and the bond that was forming between him and Max. Eli's parents also began to see the importance of communication and forgiveness. They had initially been angry with Eli for keeping Max a secret, but as they saw him grow and learn from the experience, they realized that he had been trying to do the right thing. Through caring for Max, Eli learned the value of hard work and the importance of listening to his parents. He also learned that sometimes, it's okay to ask for help. Max, too, learned to trust and rely on Eli for comfort and companionship. As Max's health improved, Eli's parents decided to officially adopt him. They saw the joy that Max brought to their family, and the lessons that Eli had learned. They knew that Max was a part of their family now, and that they would all grow and learn together. Eli's parents also realized that they had been too quick to judge their son. They saw the responsibility and maturity that he had shown in caring for Max, and they were proud of him. They knew that they had raised a good kid, and that he would continue to grow and learn as he navigated the challenges of life. In the end, Eli, Max, and their family were stronger and closer than ever before. They had learned the value of hard work, communication, and forgiveness, and they knew that they would always be there for each other, no matter what challenges they faced.